unlock this door with the key of imagination.
Topic that could be considered risky or sensitive to a crowd of folks like us. So hopefully, as I try to convey this information to you, if you know me, you will know that my heart is with real, touchy-feely, conventional pinball. But there's something pretty special about this that's going on right now. So for those of you that don't know me, let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I do write for Gameroom Magazine. For 5 years, I've worked on a pinball show in Southern Illinois. Been collecting for a long time. Owned over 200 pinball machines. I've got probably, Jared says over 50. That's, I don't know. Sometimes if you know, some of you guys that's been at it for a while, you remember that you got 4 more over at someone's house, or I forgot all about that storage building that's got 12 more. But can you pass up a warehouse raid ever? No way. So anyway, there's a couple of the game rooms. I've tried to clean up and organize my life. And I have a couple of game rooms at home. The one on the left right there is what I call the 80s arcade. And that was prepared for my son's birthday party. That's where he wanted to go. He could go anywhere. He said, let's do it in the pin shop. And then over to the right is my basement. And there are some of the people, the first people that helped coordinate our pinball show that we did down south are there. And it's a real crayon-colored world. It's all primary colors down in the basement. And it's a really fun, both places are designed to be fun. Just the environment. I like it. Sometimes I walk in after a couple of weeks and I can smell it. In the 80s arcade, it smells like the 80s. That's awesome. Okay, and then the last thing that's kind of interesting, if you may know me from the magazine, you may know me from the Silverball Podcast, you may know me from the Pinball Show, or even Life After Death videos. But the thing to know about me is that this new project in my life is this master's I'm working on in professional media management, where I'm researching the console video game industry. And I think it's fascinating because I didn't really want to go in that direction. But, the impact on the console video game, the console video game's impact on media, especially when it started taking money away from Hollywood, is very important. It's now a big function of study. And through that study, it's actually influenced the way that I look at this topic that we're talking about today. What I want to do is define something that in my studies already that has become obvious, and it may be to every one of us sitting here. But having a deep and memorable gaming experience is some of the elements that relate to that. A good playing experience makes you feel like you are accomplishing clear objectives. If you interview or you discuss what makes a great game with game designers, they're spending millions and millions of dollars. They have large conglomerate companies that are sponsoring them and paying millions of dollars for as many as maybe even 2 years of work. They know these clear objectives that they have to reach for themselves and their stockholders. A rich combination of audio, art, and game design, very important. Talking to people in the industry, our industry, the pinball industry, that we hold, it's very important. They will say the same thing. A theme or storyline that the player can connect with, very important. Sometimes if you don't have a nice theme, you can have the best geometry in a pinball playfield, but without a theme, sometimes it's painful, and vice versa. And incorporating a social experience is very important to pinball, hasn't it been? Whenever you play in tournaments together, it's more fun to compete. And then it brings the player back to repeat the experience. That's the most important part in coin-op, is that you keep the player coming back again and again. Okay, so a different angle on my pinball story as it relates to this, pinball simulation. Yes, I started playing pinball in the 70s as a little kid. I used to be the little guy that stood next to the big guy and hoping that he'd win a free game and give it to me. There's a study of this social guilt that the kids back in the day used to lay on big kids. Don't you feel sorry for me too? My mom's left me here and I've already blown my money. Or to ask those key questions like, how did you get so good? But that was me. Everything about pinball fascinated me. If there was no money and there was no one in the 7-Eleven and there was 4 pinball machines, I would be very likely just to look at the game for a long time. I just thought it was great. I still do. Everything about a computer fascinated me then, and maybe not as much now because it's a career, but it was very interesting. And so, bringing those two things together, there was this game called David's Midnight Magic that came out for the Commodore 64. I remember receiving an advertisement. It was in a magazine. Has anybody ever seen David's Midnight Magic? Remember it? Okay, cool. Well, I mean, it wasn't that cool, was it? It was cool then, but to go back and play it now is pretty brutal. What it did was it allowed me to do something I always wanted to do, and that was play for free. I didn't have any money. I mean, I guess that was probably when I was about 14 or 13 years old. I couldn't afford to buy a game. My parents would freak out. No one ever really thought about that idea. But to own a piece of software that allowed me to play pinball was very exciting. And so I had to I started on a track of pretending. In 1978, I think it was, whenever video pinball was created by Atari, people had to really, really pretend. This wasn't quite that much pretending. David's Midnight Magic was pretty cool. By the way, the three of us in here, or four of us that know it, what game was that?
Black Knight.
Huh?
Black Knight.
You guys all know that, yeah. Steve Ritchie is a popular person to rip off, I guess, for computer games, because we'll see that later. Pinball came on the scene and changed everything. It really did. Because, see, what happened was David's Midnight Magic became a game that I held tournaments on in my basement, on a black and white TV with the neighborhood kids. And then so suddenly we had this in my community, we had where Pinball became of interest to operators, local operators, two different ones, who must have connected with that game because they put it out on location. And I had sort of recruited some people through virtual pinball simulation to take a look at pinball whenever they were out in the real world. And so we had a couple of nice pinbots that were out in my community, and one of the guys that played with me in the basement said, "Hey Rob, there's a new pinball machine. I've played it, it's really cool. It's called Pinbot. Let's do our tournaments on a real machine." How about that? I mean, so there's a way there where it works, it ping pongs back and forth. And I think we'll see that. We see that continuing. We hope it continues. The Amiga computer came later in my life. When I went to Murray State University, I was studying electrical engineering technology. I had a girlfriend. We left for campus earlier, and we got snowed in. And so I was going through all this Amiga software and rediscovered a very, very cool application called Pinball Dreams. Has anybody experienced this game?
Oh, yes.
Look at that. Fans? Did you say you're a fan of games?
Definitely.
What is it that you like about it? I
I
love it, personally.
Pinball Dreams and especially Pinball Fantasies were the most realistic ones there were at the time.
Absolutely.
And they were designed with rules like real machines.
How about the alphanumeric display? Did you like that?
That too, yes.
This is the point. That's exactly the point. This was not a scripted thing. How about that? I'm not the only crazy one. We got several crazy. The thing about this was, it took that whole experience of me having to make-believe with this David's Midnight Magic to a smaller level. I didn't have to pretend as much.